welcome everybody to what is the start of a little sub-series, if you will, from Sneaky Keys. Just an idea that kind of popped in my head over the last month or so when I was taking some time away from doing these extra videos, and that being covering black and white covers. There's a lot of black and white covers out there, some incentive-wise, some open order, some are actually worth a few bucks, while others are just kind of cool to look at. I don't love every black and white cover. I've made that very clear when I do my regular shows talking about like the watch list, etc. Because sometimes I feel like it's a lazy way to get a variant, but there are plenty of good examples of black and white covers that makes the whole idea still worth covering and worth being aware of. So hopefully you enjoyed this new little sub-series I might do every so often. And let me know what you think in those comments down below, as this is something new that I'm trying out. So I can appreciate the feedback. Otherwise, check out all the other content I do have here on the channel. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you hit that alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And check out this little new show that I'm trying out for you, all right? All right, so as I mentioned, this is kind of a spin-off, if you will, of Sneaky Keys. So it's going to have a similar vibe and similar kind of run-through, even though we are covering specifically, black and white covers. And when I say black and white, there may be a color here or there mixed in, but the point being, by and large, these are focused in on, being black and white. In some cases, there is a color version, and I will show you those just so you can get an idea what it looks like when the color and finishing touches are added. Other times, this may just be it, and this is the only option available. And I will run through those and let you know, as we go through them. But that said, let's get right into it with our first topic for this series, and the one that actually made me think about it. Because as I've been doing Wednesday Watch List lately, I've noticed a lot of the recent Spawn titles have just had a cover A, and the cover B is a black and white. And yes, you go look at like, oh, why would you buy the black and white? I look back at some of the older issues, and some of them are worth a little bit more than you might expect. So that is why we are going to look at some of these Spawn covers that are black and white versions, etc. Now, my first example actually isn't a black and white example. It's on its own. Black and white, yes, the trade dress has color, but that's not the point. The point here is the art by McTina, inked by McFarlane, and this is it's just pretty to look at. I will admit, I kind of wish I would see what the finishing touches are. I'm sure they've used this on something else, but it's not on this issue, because this particular issue has no color version associated with it for issue 288 of Spawn. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. This is Spawn issue 288, and this is one of the variants, B cover, if you will. Granted, this thing's not going to make you rich if you find it, but it's well worth knowing because it's only a $2.99 book, but it sells for around $10 to $20. So it's a good thing to know. It's not super duper expensive, but it's also just not a dollar book. You could get lucky and find this thing, and you got 10 to 20 bucks, Listings are even a little bit more, looking for 15 to 25 on average for this particular black and white cover. And this particular range of Spawns, there's a ton of black and white. I'm only going to pick out a few and cover those here, but just to let you know, there are a lot more options for this whole run of Spawn, where there's a lot of black and whites. So with that, let's get into the next one, and this one will have a color version. Also, same kind of range. This is issue 271. No real order, or it's pretty random how I pick these books. Again, I'm just trying to show off some black and white books, kicking around this idea to see if it kind of hits and see if you guys find it interesting. So like I said, I appreciate feedback down below. But this particular cover for issue 271 does have a color version here. This would be the cover A that you could get when it's got its all finishing touches and color and inks, etc. But the black and white is the one we're focused in on, because the black and white in particular still goes for about 10 to 20 bucks, with listings looking for more, actually asking 25 to 40 on this one. This is an open order variant, a B cover, black and white, 25 to 40 bucks. A lot of people are asking for this one. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're out there digging in those back issue boxes. I know Spawn books have had their ups and downs as far as print run goes, and some are tough to find to begin with. And then you start adding in black and white variants to the mix, it gets even tougher. But that doesn't mean you won't stumble across this stuff while you're digging in a box. So it's well worth knowing which ones to be mindful of and which ones you can let pass by, because there are plenty that are just cover price and aren't worth anything right now. But if it speaks to you and you see a cover that jumps out at you and it's like it hits for some reason, it's always a good idea to just grab it. If the price is right, just pick it up. If you like it, there's a good chance somebody else out there will like it. If not today, at some point down the line, that book may see some interest. So trust your gut. Trust your gut. With that, let's move on to our next one. So we got 2 out of the way. And like I said, running like sneaky keys, we're going to cover 5 for this topic before we move to the next. But our next book here in this topic with Spawn is issue 302. We're going to jump way ahead from where we just were at 271. But issue 302, after the milestone issue, we still got this Capullo McFarlane offering with Spawn in black and white. I like the layout of it. You got the white at the top, black down the bottom. The balance of it is pretty cool. I like it better, honestly, as a black and white, and this is rare, than the color version, because the color version, while not bad, the color versus the white seems unfinished. Whereas on the black and white side of things, it seems, intentional. I don't know. There's some, it lays out better for me. So the black and white issue on this one definitely is my preference of the two. The color's not bad. It's a good rendition of Spawn. Just, again, 10 to 20 bucks on this thing is what it's recently selling for, and the listings are right in the same kind of range. So 10 to 20 bucks on this one if you can stumble across it in a box. But as I said, this one, it's my preference in the black and white, which is rare. It's honestly pretty rare. I've mentioned a lot of artists out there that I do enjoy their black. I mean, Jim Lee obviously being one of them with the inks by Scott Williams, etc. It's not easy to have a decent cover when we're taking away a lot of the inks, color finishes, lighting, etc. If you just go straight to pencils or even just to the inks, it's different steps in the process, and it doesn't always hit as art in and of itself. I mean, it's still art, but you know what I'm saying. Sometimes certain images might need those finishing touches, while others could stand alone even without being completely done. Like this one. This is an interesting one, as this almost seems like a layout kind of sketch here on Spawn 270. So this is just the issue before we just covered, and completely different art, completely different look. And this is the black and white version, which again is a stark contrast to when it's completely finished with the color version here. I forgot to add the color bits on that around it, but still, you get the idea. This looks very manga anime-esque, if you will, but when it's a black and white, it does seem more like a layout, as it does still seem unfinished, as you don't get those textures or a lot of those finishing touches that you might get with a traditional pencil and ink process. So you can see how this one would have gone from sketch to finishes probably right away, kind of skipping the traditional inking that we used to see back in the 90s with a lot of the cross hatching, etc. But still decent cover here, and you can see sells for about 25 to 30 bucks, which ain't bad in and of itself, with listings of $30 to $40. So this is a solid book. Even the color version on this one, I think, is worth a few bucks because of the character that was introduced. I don't know. There's so many different Spawns introduced along the way. I think there's one in here that I think it's this one that I don't know what they call them, but it makes it worth a couple of bucks. But point being, look out for the black and white, as you get a decent return on that one if you can find it for cheap. So there are 4 good ones to look for. And then I've got one more to kind of wrap up the Spawn segment for now, because again, we can come back to this later. And this is another case where it's just the black and white. And this is issue 260 of Spawn, where we go back to, we got a Sandoval inked by McFarlane. So you can see McFarlane is one of those artists who I can appreciate the fact that he can ink another artist's work and still show his influence on it, but yet highlight what that artist does in and of themselves. Like, you still know it's not just a McFarlane, but you do see the McFarlane touches added. I don't know. It's a tricky little business. Not every artist can pull it off. So I think it's an interesting little thing that, I credit Todd for being able to do. But with that said, issue 260 of Spawn has no color version. As I mentioned, it's just this black and white one. And average sales on this one goes for about 35 bucks. So not too bad, with listings seeking that 35 up to $50. So a decent return if you can find this little black and white beauty in a box for issue 260 of Spawn. And again, I think this is near one of those down times where people will call low print run, because Spawn has hit that a few times throughout its run. But even so, just be aware of it. Just be mindful of it. Keep a lookout for it, because these are 5 decent black and white covers that could fetch you a few bucks if you find them. Now, before we move on to the next segment of books, quick reminder, use my code RENA10 over at BCW to pick up your supplies. You need bags and boards, you need long boxes or short boxes, you need top loaders or CGC boxes, basically anything to keep your comics or collectibles safe. You need supplies. You hate spending money on that stuff, so you might as well save a few bucks while you do it. Use my code RENA10 for 10% off your entire order. You help out the channel, you get yourself a discount. You really got nothing to lose since you're going to be buying that stuff anyway. So I mentioned Jim Lee in my little opening there because he is one of my favorite artists and one of the few that I think does leave a decent impression on a cover when it's just pencils or inks, etc. So we're going to look at some Jim Lee second print covers where they decided to go the route of let's just make it a black and white for the second printing. This was a popular thing they did, a few years back. They still do it every now and again, now, but now it also seems like black and white is just an open order option for a lot of books. So, we're in the age of variants. So many variants, so many different versions right at the outset. We go back, 10 to 15 years. At that time, there weren't as many options variant-wise, so they saved some of these things for second prints. Our first one being, and I know I've covered this before on other shows, maybe a hidden gems here or there, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we do have a lot of new viewers now who may have not have seen those old shows. So it doesn't hurt to remind you all that World of Warcraft #1 does have a Jim Lee cover, and the second print has this black and white rendition done by Mr. Jim Lee. So black and white, World of Warcraft #1. There is a color version. As I mentioned, this is the regular #1. And you can see with all the finishing touches and the trade dress added, it definitely adds layers and it's definitely a different look. But on its own, it's still a solid cover. It's still a solid cover, in my opinion. And this thing sells for about 10 to 15 bucks. Not going to make you rich, but still a fun little detail, little tidbit, something to know, because the listings go up to 25. So the average listing right now is looking for anywhere from like 10 to 25 bucks. A lot of that is condition sensitive, timing on the market, how many copies are available. So these aren't books that are going to be on the hot list right now. These are fun little hidden things that are tucked away in boxes like sneaky keys. Once again, that's kind of this spin-off idea, but this is just focusing in on these black and white covers. And right now, that's our first Jim Lee second print to talk about. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but that World of Warcraft run actually had a few Jim Lee covers, and all the second printings had these black and white. So here's issue 2. So continuing that run, you can see once again a black and white cover for World of Warcraft featuring Jim Lee art. There is a color version, obviously, so we'll look at the color one there. You can see those finishing details. It almost looks like a Conan cover, and Jim Lee has done Conan covers in the past, so you can see sort of some of that inspiration, or at least I can. But here's the black and white. Sells for about 10 bucks, and the asking price is about 10 bucks on this one. So not quite as much as the issue 1, but still something to be mindful of and keep an eye on when you're digging in a box. Maybe you come across issue 2, or maybe you come across issue 3, which is the final one we're going to talk about here, and another black and white cover featuring that Jim Lee art that looks very Conan-esque, in my opinion. Here is the finishing touches on it with all the, the color and everything added, and we'll go back to the black and white, which is, again, is about a $10 book. Like issue 2, this is about a $10 book, both sale-wise and listing-wise. So people are just seeking about 10 bucks for this thing. Well, again, not going to get rich, but still not bad if you can go dig in a back issue box, find this for, $2 or $3 or $1 even in a $1 box. Maybe you get lucky. You find a little treasure for, it's a $10 score. Not going to make you rich, but definitely it could make you happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. There we go. So we got those first 3 issues of World of Warcraft covered, and those are all black and white Jim Lee covers. But one of the more popular Jim Lee second print covers that's in black and white, I think, is this Batman. Classic Batman 612, part of the Hush run. You've got Superman choking out bats. This is the black and white second print version of that book, though. And the color version, like I said, is right here. I'm sure you remember this one. It does all right on its own. Both the color version or the black and white, but the black and white second print version is a book that sells for anywhere from $15 to $35. So definitely keep an eye out for it. If you didn't know this was a second printing, apart from the fact that it's a black and white, you can also look at that barcode down below, because I mentioned the barcode situation to you before, how those numbers actually mean something. So I don't know if you can see them very clearly, but if you kind of zoom in, the barcode reads 61212. This is issue 612, so that's your first 612. Volume 1, that's the volume of Batman. cover 2 or second printing. The printing is the next one. So if there was another option, one of the numbers would be different. Anyway, point being, sells for about $15 to $35, while listings on this one are about $20 to $40. So a few bucks more on the asks, where the acceptances are a few dollars less. So maybe you can make a best offer if you see a listing out there. Again, I'm not telling you to buy online. I'm telling you to go dig at your LCSs, your half-price books, your flea markets, wherever you're doing your digging. Just be mindful of these books. That's more the point of this series. I'm not telling you to go out and buy these at top market prices, because then that's what you're paying. Just know that you're going to pay. You're paying top of the market, most likely. But with that said, there's another one on that Jim Lee second print topic, which we can now move on to our final one, which I know I've covered this book before, because we've run into this one previously, because I know I did the Legion of Superheroes, the 1 in 10 variants. So this is actually the 1 in 10 variant, but for the second printing, they used the 1 in 10 art, but gave you a black and white version of Saturn Girl on that Legion of Superheroes series from, I think it's like 2010. So yeah, 2010, first issue. So way back. Here is the 1 in 10 color version. Again, gorgeous cover. This one does very well. This is like a $60 book mostly. And you can go up from there. And that's for the 1 in 10 color version. The black and white second print doesn't quite reach those heights, but it's still worth knowing, because it still sells for about $15 if you can find it. And listings on this one are $15 to $30. Not bad. It's just not quite as expensive as the other one, which is an incentive variant, by the way. So it's going to be a little less plentiful. But then again, the second print. Well, I don't know the exact print run on the second print, even though we can kind of get that estimate on like Comic-Con going back to this time frame. These days, we don't have that luxury. But there is our second topic, our Jim Lee second print black and white variants. There you go. Those are the 5 I decided to pick out for this one. We've got one more topic to cover, but real quick, I mentioned the supplies. If you need shipping supplies, you need to go over to Gemini. You got to get your Gemini mailer. Say you sold a book, you found a book, you scored a little book to flip. You need to mail it. You need Gemini mailers for that. Use my code RENA10 for 10% off over at Gemini as well. You can also pick up bags and boards and long boxes and short boxes, but I'm sure your main focus is to get those Gemini mailers. And again, it's a pain spending money on something you're just going to mail away, but you got to do it. You got to do it. So you might as well save some money while you do it. So Rena10 for 10% off your order. Again, you help the channel, get your discount, whether it's at BCW or Gemini, you could save 10% off using Rena10. And with that, we're going to stick with the second print idea for one more topic. Not Jim Lee's. We're going to focus now in on Marvel as a whole, because I feel like we left Marvel out. We hit some Spawn. We hit some DC with those Jim Lee's. So now let's take a look over at Marvel. And yes, right now we're going to look at second printings, because that's a lot of the times when we see these black and white options come in. It's in later printings and variants. It's like incentives. So I've already got other shows on this topic kind of planned, and we will hit up some incentive variants down the line. But for today, I tried to go more with open order, things you can find at the store, that's not that tough to track down, not like a Ghost or anything like that, which is another show we'll be bringing back in the weeks ahead. But with that all said, our first Marvel second print black and white I want to talk about is Secret War, book 2 of 5. This is the first appearance of Daisy Johnson, Quake, who, again, we saw those spikes way back in the day when Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on television, which is an underrated show, by the way. Not every season was great, but it was a great show overall, in my opinion. I enjoyed it. And maybe one day we'll see, Chloe Bennett come back and play, Quake once again. But for now, this is the first appearance, but in a black and white form. Here is the color version, original edition. I think it's had that foil cover at the top, like that silver foil in the trade dress. But Delato art, gorgeous. Gorgeous stuff in interior and exterior, and not just the covers, the interiors as well is Delato art. And here is the black and white once again. And this one sells for about $12. Nowhere near where it was at its height. Like I said, there was a high at one time when this book had spiked with the character, who also played a major role in some of the events like Secret Invasion across the Marvel era of the time. But these days, we haven't seen much of Quake, I don't think. With that, $12 average sale, listings 10 to 20. So still in that kind of range. That's kind of the wheelhouse of where I look. $10 to $20 books you might find for $2 or $3 in a discount box somewhere. Stuff to keep an eye out for. Fun little scores, fun little treasures to go and dig out of the box. So there's our first one. Our next one is this beautiful Moon Knight. So we've got this Dave Finch 2009 second print variant for Vengeance of Moon Knight #1. There is a color edition of this book that I think is like a hard to find retailer variant of some sort. That's this one. They moved the trade dress on it for the variant and for the second print, but it looks very nice with the color. But you can still see David Finch is another one of those artists. You see all that line work, all the heavy detailing there with the, again, I brought up the cross hatching, the blacks, the uses of the blacks and the whites, and that it's just gorgeous. Just look at it. Black and white art. This one also still hits without those color additives. I didn't find any recent sales of this book because it's not the easiest thing to track down, but the asking prices show you why. If you do find one, you've done well, because this is asking $30 to $50 right now. So 30 to 50 bucks on this second print wouldn't be a bad find if you can go dig this Vengeance of Moon Knight #1 second print out of a box somewhere. So keep that one in mind and in your mental Rolodex for when you're flipping through boxes, because you never know. You never know. So there we go. We got 2 Marvel second prints with a few more to go. Our next one is another book I know I've covered at one time years ago. This Black Widow #1 second print variant. This is, again, another nice cover where they took an incentive variant, because I believe this was the cover for the 1 in 25 when we look at the color version of it. I believe this is the 1 in 25 for this this volume of Black Widow, which I think was in, again, the 2010 kind of range. So we had this cover. Then we took it to the second print, removed the color, and you've got the black and white inked version of it. And it's still very, very nice. And another book, not on anybody's radar, so there's no sales the last 3 months for me to point out. But if you're shopping for one, there are a few listings, and people are seeking 10 to 25 bucks. So not too bad on this one, this second print, if you can find it. The 1 in 25 is a few bucks more. So if you find the color version, there's another case where the color version actually is more than the black and white. But we're not worried about that right now. I'm just trying to point out that even these second printings can be valuable if you find them in a box and the price is right. So there we go. Our third one out of the gate there. Moving on to Namor next. So once again, still kind of same time frame with Marvel in that early 2010s kind of range. We have Namor First Mutant #1, the second print variant. Jay Lee art. Again, you see the nice balance of the black and whites. That's what catches my eye when we see the light and the dark and how they play against each other. That's how you see the textures and the depth of the image. I don't know. But color-wise, yes, it still looks very nice. We got that weird, I don't like side bordered trade dresses personally. I like them across the top, but you know, at the time, Curse of the Mutants was an event, so they had that border thing going down most of the books at the time. So what are you going to do? But there is the color art. Now we get to see the full art when you take away that border, and you see how it lays much nicer on the page without that big side thing. Anyway, yet another book that doesn't have any recent sales. Sorry, it's just not something that people are currently looking for. I mean, this is a 2010 Namor First Mutant book. Who's looking for that? But those who do find them and do have them know it is not worthless, because this is a $28 ask. I think I only found like 1 or 2, but it's about 28 bucks. So nearly $30 if you can find this one in the second print black and white. So keep that one in mind as well. And that will take us to our final selection for the show and for these Marvel second prints. And that is this one, which looks very close to the color version. It's Captain America and Bucky #620. Ed McGuinness doing the art there. This is the second print, which you can see it right there in the Marvel box. It says Marvel second printing right at the top, apart from the barcode, which I mentioned before. But anyway, well, the barcode actually plays differently for Marvel here. But anyway, we're going to go to the color version so you can see the difference. The film behind him is still in color, where the character in front is still black and white. So it's still mostly a black and white cover, even without the second printing. But we get rid of a lot of those extra touches when we do see the second print here. And this one, while once again, no recent sales, just something that's just not selling. But those asking prices show that there is value and people do know this book, because this is a $20 to $50 ask. So once again, you might have to be patient if you find one of these to find the right buyer that is willing to pay the market prices. But once again, that's part of the fun. You're out there digging. Who knows what you might find for these black and white covers? And that is my last black and white cover in the Marvel second print category and for this topic today. So that was 15 books that you can go and keep in your mental Rolodex when you're looking at black and whites. And just be mindful of that when you're out there digging. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Like I said, I can use constructive criticism, your feedback down below. I do have some more of these planned out that we'll do down the line at some point as I try to intermix the different shows as I bring them all back. But until next time, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for all the support. And I'll see you all later with some more content. All right.